There is a person in your life right now who smiles at your face and quietly hopes you fail. And the terrifying part is, they might be someone you trust completely. You have felt this before. You walk into a room feeling good about yourself, about your life, about where things are going. Then you spend 20 minutes with a specific person, and when you leave, something is different. You feel hollow, smaller, like the air was slowly let out of you without you ever noticing the leak. You replay the conversation looking for what went wrong. They didn't say anything cruel, they didn't attack you. In fact, they were perfectly pleasant on the surface. But somewhere between hello and goodbye, something got inside you that didn't belong to you. That feeling has a name, and once you understand exactly what it is and where it comes from, you will never be blindsided by it again. Stay with me because what I'm about to show you changes how you see people permanently. The most dangerous emotional weapon ever used against a sensitive person is not anger. It is not criticism. It is not even betrayal. It is something so quiet, so disguised, and so perfectly invisible that most people carry its damage for years without ever identifying the source. It is envy. But not the loud, obvious kind. We are talking about the kind that wears a friend's face. Before I show you the exact mechanics of how this works and how to stop it completely, I need to tell you about a study that should terrify you a little. Researchers at the University of Michigan found that after social interactions, people who scored high on empathy showed measurable changes in their cortisol levels, the body's primary stress hormone, even when the interaction appeared completely neutral on the surface. Their nervous systems were responding to something their conscious minds hadn't even registered yet. You are not imagining it. Your body knows before your brain catches up. And the people around you know this about you, even if they couldn't articulate it. They feel safer letting their emotional waste leak in your direction because you are the one person who will absorb it without making a scene. Let me show you exactly how this trap works from the inside. Imagine a woman named Sarah. She has worked hard. She got the promotion she earned. She finally got her health together. Her relationship is solid. And for the first time in years, she actually feels proud of where her life is going. She has a close friend. Let's call her Michelle. They have been friends for a long time. Michelle has always been in her corner. Or so Sarah believed. The day Sarah shares her promotion news, Michelle smiles. She says all the right things. That's amazing. You deserve it. But something in the air shifts. There is a half-second delay before the smile arrives. The hug is a little shorter than usual. The subject changes a little faster than it should. And as Sarah drives home that evening, a strange thing begins to happen. The good feeling evaporates. In its place is this creeping, formless anxiety. She starts questioning whether she actually deserved the promotion. She wonders if maybe she came across as too braggy when she shared the news. She starts rehearsing apologies in her head for a conversation that never happened. She goes to bed feeling guilty about her own success. Sarah doesn't realize it yet, but she just got hit. And she caught the weapon herself and pointed it at her own chest. This is the trap. And if you are an empath, you have fallen into it more times than you can count. Here is the psychology of what actually happened in that room. Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in the history of psychology, spent decades studying the shadow, that hidden part of the human psyche where we bury everything we cannot face about ourselves. The dreams we gave up on, the person we were too afraid to become, the potential we quietly abandoned somewhere between childhood and the life we settled for. Jung discovered something that changes everything about how you understand the people around you. When a person has not done the difficult internal work of confronting their own buried dreams and failures, they carry that unresolved weight in their shadow. It sits there in the dark, unexamined, building pressure. Now here is where you come in. When someone who is carrying that buried weight encounters a person who is actually living, actually growing, actually succeeding at the things they abandoned, something ruptures inside them. It is not a thought, it is not a conscious decision, it is a deep, involuntary, emotional explosion. Jung called it the pain of the unlived life. Your success doesn't make them feel inspired, it makes them feel exposed. Because you are holding up a mirror to every choice they didn't make, every risk they didn't take, every morning they hit snooze on their own potential. And what do most people do with pain they cannot face? They redirect it, outward, at the mirror. That cold undercurrent in Michelle's voice when Sarah shared her news, that wasn't about Sarah at all. That was Michelle's shadow speaking. That was 10 years of deferred dreams colliding with someone else's reality in real time. And because Sarah is an empath, she absorbed the fallout of that internal collision and carried it home in her own body like it was hers. Now let me give you something even more important. Because understanding the source of the attack is only half the equation. You need to know why your nervous system is so uniquely vulnerable to it. Researchers studying high sensitivity traits have found that approximately 20% of the population has a nervous system that processes emotional stimuli significantly more deeply than average. This isn't a flaw in your wiring. Evolutionarily, your tribe needed people like you. You were the early warning system, the one who sensed danger before it became visible, the one who read the emotional temperature of the group and kept people safe. The problem is that in the modern world, that same heightened sensitivity doesn't just detect real danger. It also absorbs ambient emotional toxicity from people who are sitting right next to you at the dinner table or texting you good morning every day. Your emotional boundaries are not walls, they are membranes. And a membrane is designed to let things through. When you encounter someone carrying jealous energy, that energy doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock on the door and say, "Excuse me, I'm someone else's unresolved bitterness. May I come in?" It seeps. It slides through your membrane dressed as your own anxiety, your own self-doubt, your own quiet voice telling you to make yourself smaller. And you believe it. Because it feels like you. That is the whole con. The most dangerous part of absorbing someone else's emotional waste is that you cannot tell the difference between what is theirs and what is yours. So you treat their poison like your own medicine and spend weeks trying to heal a wound someone else created. Here is where we change the game completely. There is a specific psychological skill, and I mean a trainable, practicable, buildable skill that breaks this cycle permanently. It is not meditation. It is not affirmations. It is not cutting people off and living in a cabin in the woods. It is a practice called internal attribution audit, and once you learn it, everything changes. Here is how it works. The next time you walk away from a person or a social situation feeling suddenly worse than you did before, you stop. Right there. Before you let those feelings start reshaping your self-perception, before you let the spiral begin, you pause and you ask yourself a single question with genuine curiosity, not judgment. Was I feeling this before I walked into that room? That is it. That one question is your entire defense system. If the answer is no, then what you are feeling is not your emotional data. It is theirs. You picked it up the way you pick up a cold in a crowded space, and just like a cold, your first job is to recognize that you are dealing with something external, not a reflection of your internal truth. The moment you make that distinction, something remarkable happens neurologically. The prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, re-engages. The emotional hijack loses its grip, and instead of you being swept along in a current that isn't yours, you become the person standing on the bank watching the water flow past. You see the feeling, you name it. You refuse to adopt it as your autobiography. But there is a second layer to this that most people never reach, and this is where the real power lives. When you identify that what you absorbed is not yours, the next step is to get curious about what it actually is. Not angry, not defensive, genuinely, clinically curious. Because the specific flavor of jealousy someone directs at you tells you exactly what they are grieving inside themselves. If someone gets cold every time you talk about your career growth, they are sitting on buried professional ambition they gave up on. If someone deflates every time you mention your relationship, they are carrying grief about their own romantic life. If someone subtly undermines you every time you are confident and visible, they are terrified of their own desire for recognition because they were taught that wanting it was dangerous. Their envy is a map of their own locked room. This changes how you experience the attack entirely. Because once you stop reading their behavior as a verdict on your worth and start reading it as a symptom of their wound, you stop shrinking. You stop apologizing, and you stop carrying their bags. You can feel compassion for their pain without becoming a container for it. Those are two very different things. Now I want to talk about the thing nobody tells sensitive people about protection. Because there is a massive, pervasive myth that the way to protect yourself as an empath is to build walls, to withdraw, to stop sharing yourself so freely, to show less, feel less, need less. And that advice is not just wrong, it is the opposite of what actually works. Here is why. When you build a wall, you are operating from a position of fear. You are essentially announcing to your nervous system that the world is a threatening place and you need to barricade yourself against it. And your nervous system, which is highly suggestible and extraordinarily responsive, believes you. It starts treating all emotional input as potential danger. It starts contracting. And you slowly become someone who is cut off not just from other people's toxicity, but from your own joy, creativity, and connection. You don't protect yourself by becoming smaller. You protect yourself by becoming more anchored in yourself. Think of it this way. A ship doesn't protect itself from waves by shrinking. It survives storms by having a deep, stable keel below the waterline. The waves still come, they always will. But the ship's weight and center of gravity keep it upright and moving forward while everything on the surface churns. Your internal anchor is your identity, your values, your knowledge of who you are separate from who other people need you to be. The deeper that anchor goes, the less power surface-level toxicity has over your direction. And here is the critical, uncomfortable truth that sits at the center of all of this. Jealous energy can only truly damage you if there is already a hook inside you for it to grab onto. Think about that carefully. If someone whispers that you are untalented and somewhere deep inside you, you secretly fear that you are untalented, their words find purchase. They connect to something already lurking in your shadow, and they amplify it into a roar. But if you have done the work to genuinely know your worth, not in an arrogant, performative way, but in a quiet, private, deeply certain way, their whisper hits a surface with no grip. It slides right off. Not because you are invulnerable, but because there is nothing inside you for it to attach to. This is why the real work of protecting yourself as an empath is not about managing other people. It is about resolving your own internal doubts. It is about finding the places inside yourself where you still secretly agree with the people who underestimate you, and doing the work to close those wounds. Because every unhealed wound is a landing strip for someone else's projection. Let me give you something practical you can use starting today. There are 3 specific behaviors that tell you, with high accuracy, that the person you are dealing with is operating from jealous energy rather than genuine engagement. These are not obvious, they are subtle, but once you learn to read them, you will never misread a room again. The first is what psychologists call the praise-diminish cycle. This is when someone compliments you and immediately follows it with a minimizing statement in the same breath. "Oh wow, you got that promotion, that is so great. I heard those usually just go to whoever has been there the longest, though." The compliment is the front door. The diminishment is the real message. Watch for the "and," but that immediately follows any good news you share. The second is selective memory about your progress. An envious person in your life will have a fascinating tendency to forget your wins and remember your stumbles in granular detail. They will bring up the time 2 years ago when something didn't work out with the same vivid specificity they never apply to your successes. This is not accidental. Memory is curated by emotion. They remember what confirms the narrative their shadow needs to tell about you. The third is energy shifts tied specifically to your visibility. Not your relationship, not your health, not your happiness in general, your visibility, your confidence. The moments when you are most fully, unapologetically yourself. Those are the moments that trigger the coldness, the subtle withdrawal, the slightly too long silence before they respond. Because your visibility is the most direct confrontation with everything they have chosen not to become. Once you learn to recognize these patterns, something extraordinary happens. They stop hurting you. They start informing you. You see them as data about what is happening inside the other person, rather than evidence of something wrong with you. And from that position of clarity, you can make intelligent, calm, non-reactive decisions about how much energy and access you extend to specific people in your life. This is the most empowering place you will ever stand. Not because you have eliminated difficult people from your life, although sometimes that is the right call, but because you have eliminated their power to make you doubt yourself. That is permanent. That goes with you everywhere. I want to leave you with something that I think about often because I think it changes the whole frame. The reason envious people target you specifically, the reason they are drawn to your energy while simultaneously resenting it, is not because you are a convenient target. It is because you represent something real to them, something they actually once wanted and chose to abandon. In a strange, painful way, your presence matters to them more than almost anyone else's. You got under their skin not through any wrongdoing, but through the simple act of refusing to abandon yourself. That is extraordinary when you sit with it. The most threatening thing you can be to a person who gave up on themselves is a living example that it was possible to keep going. Your sensitivity is not the problem. Your visibility is not the problem. Your success, your joy, your authenticity, none of it is the problem. The problem, if we can even call it that, is that you have been so busy trying to manage the discomfort you absorbed from other people that you never fully gave yourself permission to inhabit the whole space you are meant to take up. That changes today. You are not responsible for the pain your growth causes in people who chose not to grow. You are not responsible for the discomfort your light creates for people who decided to stay in the dark. And you are absolutely not responsible for shrinking yourself into a version that their unhealed wounds can tolerate. Your job is not to be palatable to people at war with their own potential. Your job is to be relentlessly, unapologetically, irreversibly yourself. And to trust that the deeper you go into who you actually are, the less grip anything outside of you has on your sense of worth. The next time you walk away from someone feeling smaller than when you arrived, remember this. You didn't create that feeling. You caught it. And anything you caught, you can put down. Put it down. Walk forward. And do not for a single moment let someone else's unlived life become the ceiling of yours. If this reached something in you, share it with one person in your life who needed to hear it. And if you are ready to go deeper into understanding the psychology of how sensitive people can move through the world with their full power intact, hit subscribe. There is a lot more where this came from.